In this video, I'll give you a quick tutorial on why you need a will and how to create one. And we're starting right now. So if you have any earthly possessions at all, you may want to do some estate planning to make sure that if you were to suddenly die, these possessions find a new home, which is usually within your immediate family. Now, estate planning is a complicated topic, but one of its key elements of the will is easy to go over, and I'll do so in this short video. The full name of a will is the last will and testament, and it's simply a legal document that states how a person's assets should be distributed after their death. Now, you can certainly expand the will to include a lot of other directives and wishes, but in essence, the way most people envision and use a will boils down to who gets your stuff when you're gone. Anyone who is of legal age and sound mind can create a will for themselves, and while you can certainly make it fancy and even pay an attorney to do it for you, in the end, if you just type it out in the proper format and sign it with witnesses present, it's just as legal as if it came out of a law office. Who should have a will and when should you have it? The short answer is that because a will is a very important document, every adult should have it in place as soon as possible. It doesn't matter if you're only in your 20s or 30s, it's never too early to do this. Now, perhaps one of the biggest hurdles to getting a will written out is the belief that you don't have enough assets or that you aren't wealthy enough to bother with any kind of estate planning. That's not really true. Very few people own nothing of value, and if you take stock of your entire life, you may be surprised to discover you own a lot more financial assets than you think. Okay, hopefully you're convinced of the importance of having a will, so let's briefly go over some of the technical details of one. Perhaps the first thing that needs to be mentioned is that there are several different types. The most common and best known one is a simple will, which allows you to state your basic wishes without the inclusion of multiple stipulations or clauses. The name simple is somewhat misleading though, as you can actually accomplish quite a bit with this type of will. You can appoint an executor who is charged with ensuring your wishes are honored, and you can also designate a guardian for any minor children or dependents. For most people, this type of will is all you need. Another type is a joint will, which can be useful in some cases where you want your spouse to be the initial beneficiary of your whole estate, with the final beneficiaries being your children after you both die. Essentially, a joint will is one will for two people. It's important to understand that a joint will becomes irrevocable, which just means it can't be changed after one partner dies, but as long as both are living, changes can be made. With that being said, however, most attorneys recommend both married partners just do their own individual simple wills and not bother with a joint one. Finally, there are two types of wills that you generally want to stay away from, as they can cause you legal problems. The first is what's called a holographic will, and that's just a fancy way of saying the will is written and signed completely by hand. It's not really as common anymore as it used to be, and is usually a result of some extreme life or death situation where a will needs to be created as fast as possible. Another such type of will is the non-cupative one. That is yet another fancy legal term that simply means that the will is spoken out, in other words, orally stated and not written down. It also can create some legal headaches for you, and is also generally a result of some emergency where a person has little time. So the next question is, what's included in a will? While you can certainly put in almost anything you wish as long as it's not illegal, there is an accepted format to make things easier and to keep the will on solid legal footing. I already mentioned appointing an executor who will make sure your wishes are followed, as well as assigning guardianship to address who will take care of your minor children. Then of course you list out your assets and real property, indicating who gets what, and finally you can add in instructions for funeral arrangements. What should you not put into a will? Definitely not property that is jointly held, as the other person has a say in this. You also don't need to put in anything regarding life insurance beneficiaries, as that is addressed in the policy itself, and the same thing with retirement plans or any other accounts that already require a beneficiary to be named. Once your will is completed, checked over by an attorney, and signed, you can just keep it in a safe place and let others know where it is. Wills should of course be occasionally updated, and a good rule of thumb is to update the will anytime you have what's considered a major life event. These can include the birth of a child, death of anyone related to the will, marriage or divorce, change in ownership of major property, or moving to a new state or country. Even if you have no major life events, it is a good idea to review your will every few years just to make sure you haven't forgotten anything. So finally, as we finish up this video, how do you actually create the will? Well, here's an important tip. Gather up all the needed info first. Take inventory of all your assets, choose beneficiaries, select an executor, and basically have all your info at your fingertips. Creating the actual will is very easy, and you don't need to write it from scratch nor have an attorney do it. There are numerous will and trust companies out there that will provide you with a template that is appropriate for your state of residency, and you literally just need to fill in the blanks and the software will generate the proper legal language and include your inputs. I personally used Quicken, Willmaker, and Trust for my will, and it did a good job. I'm not officially endorsing it here on my channel in any way, but at the same time, I didn't have any issues with it and would recommend it to others. You should of course go to an attorney if you have a complex financial life and have numerous assets, sources of revenue, and investments. For most people, however, having an attorney create a will from scratch is an unneeded expense, and instead just have them check it over once it's done and you're ready to sign it. Don't forget, you will need witnesses and have it notarized. So that was a quick explanation of a will and the basics of what it is, what's in one, and how to get one done. If you haven't yet, go ahead and take care of this as soon as you can. The alternative to not having a will is confusion and possible probate court if you die, and you really want to avoid that for the sake of your surviving family members. As always, if you enjoyed this content, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.